the division that deals with the long-range community planning for the city. So thank you all for inviting me to your meeting today. I wanted to start by acknowledging that the City of Victoria is located on the homelands of the Songhees Nation and the Cosept Nation, also known as the Esquimalt Nation. So today I'm going to give you some contextual information about Victoria. I'm going to give you some stats and demographics. I'm going to give you really high-level stats and demographics because I'm really terrible with numbers and I love the stories that the numbers tell, so I'm going to focus on the stories behind them. I'm going to touch upon some of our planning challenges and the various challenges that we're facing, as well as some of our planning priorities. And then I'm going to include talking about the planning tools, our OCP and local area planning. And then I'm going to end with just a quick overview of how we plan, and in hopes that it helps you with some of your considerations around amalgamation. So first, Victoria is the urban core of the capital region, and we share boundaries with our neighbors, Saanich, generally to the north, Esquimalt to the west, and Oak Bay to the east. So Victoria's downtown core area is a special place, and to the comment earlier about what is downtown Saanich, I actually do think that downtown Victoria is the downtown for the region. It's not just our downtown. It includes a wide mix of land uses, and it includes the city's highest densities. It includes our historic Old Town, which has relatively low-rise commercial mixed-use buildings near the harbor, with heritage significance. And then as we move away from the Old Town east of Douglas Street, that's where we start to see much taller, newer buildings in our central business district. And then beyond that, our core residential district, which has Victoria's highest residential densities in the city. And of course, we have a very iconic inner harbor that has regional significance as a working harbor, and that provides recreational opportunities, transportation hubs, and industry. So beyond where our offices are located in the central business district, much of Victoria's employment lands are focused around the harbor, which takes advantage of Rock Bay being a deep seaport for transporting cargo. It also includes shipbuilding and manufacturing and production and other industries. We are currently doing long-range planning in the Rock Bay area, in particular what we're calling an industry, arts, and innovation district. And the purpose of this work is really to protect our very limited industrial lands, which are very important to Victoria, to have a diversified economy, and to have many of our future employment needs met in that area. And of course, Victoria is characterized by many idyllic neighborhoods outside of our downtown core area. Many of our neighborhoods have very unique villages that include local serving commercial uses and mixed uses. They really act, in many of the neighborhoods, they act as the hearts of those neighborhoods and their destinations for neighbors. And they're really great in that people can access their daily needs very close to where they live. Victoria's street and block pattern throughout the neighborhoods is highly variable, likely due to our island geography. We have a variety of street and block patterns. We have a variety of lot sizes and lot shapes. Some are flat, some are sloped, some have rocky outcrops. So we don't really have this one-size-fits-all approach with respect to residential development in the neighborhoods, and so development needs to respond to those unique characteristics. Interestingly, we have a few back lanes in some of our residential areas, but we generally don't have a back lane system like other cities of a similar age. And so it's really hard for us to hide things like driveways and parking and utility poles. And so our streets need to basically accommodate everything. They need to accommodate all of those things, plus sidewalks, boulevards and trees, underground utilities, and so it's actually very challenging. So I'm going to go into some statistics and some fast facts about Victoria. We are geographically very small, just under 20 square kilometers, so you can walk from one end to the other. We're very compact, dense, walkable, bikeable. We can't spread out because we have other municipalities around us, which is a good thing, but we can only accommodate new development by infilling and by going up, which is really nice because it makes for a very vibrant city and a very human-scaled city. We have a population of just under 92,000, and those people have formed 49,000 households. Most of our population are renters, so 60% of our residents are renters and 40% own their own homes. So some key demographics for you. Our household sizes are generally smaller than others in the region. So 49% of our residents are one-person households, and only 18% of our households have children. And our population overall has lower incomes than other municipalities in the region. And I would say that these indicators can really be attributed to us having more renters who tend to have lower incomes than those who own their homes. Single-person households likely the result of having retirees and seniors. And we also get a concentration of service workers, so people in the hospitality industry, in the tourism industry, in the food and beverage sectors. And of course, all of this is also influenced by our built form. We have a lot of multi-unit residential buildings in the city which tend to have smaller units. So Victoria continues to grow, and by 2050, we are estimating that Victoria's population will be up around 140,000. So 47,000 additional new residents, and those residents are going to form an additional 26,600 households. We're also anticipating employment growth, so if more people are growing up in Victoria and more people are coming to live in Victoria, we need jobs for them. And so we are projecting 19,000 to 40,000 new jobs by 2050 in various sectors that include professional, scientific, and technical services, healthcare and social assistance. We have a lot of social services in Victoria. And accommodation, given tourism, of course, and food services. So I'm going to talk about some of the planning challenges next. You know, and some of these planning challenges I think you're all aware of, but Victoria is very expensive, and land values are very high. We are a highly desirable place to live, so the housing demand exceeds the housing supply, and so it's very expensive. And as a result of that, it's very hard to stay in the city. Over many years, we have experienced a consistent trend where people in their 20s and 30s, so essentially the age when they start forming families, leave the city. And you can see that in this graph, which shows all of the census data going back to the mid-1990s, where you see this significant drop in the population for those age groups. And we attribute this to a couple of factors. First, that we don't have enough housing suitable for families, and that it's too expensive. So people in these age groups consistently leave. Possibly they go to the West Shore communities, possibly they go up island or to other provinces. And this graph on the right shows that single-family dwellings are the most expensive housing form in Victoria. Townhouses and condominiums are less expensive, and that's been consistent over the years. So our biggest challenge, and this is one that's really been years in the making, is that we are in a housing crisis, and alleviating this is one of our council's top priorities, and our previous councils as well. And the majority of Victoria residents believe that this is the most important issue facing the city. As I mentioned, 60% of our residents are renters, and we have a very low vacancy rate. We only have a 1% vacancy rate, and about 3 to 5% vacancy is considered healthy, so we're well below that. And so it's very hard for current renters to move around if they need to, or for new renters to find housing. And sadly, many people in our community experience homelessness. So we have also prepared a housing needs report similar to Saanich, which is required by provincial legislation, and it helps us plan for the future to understand what our housing needs are going to be in the coming years. And so by 2050, it's projected that we will need 26,600 units for the new population that we're expecting. But we've also been falling behind with providing housing for our current population, and so we also need to catch up with around 8,000 units. And so when you add those together, we need 34,600 housing units, which translates to about 5,800 every 5 years. And so we need to make room. And I want to talk a bit about family housing, because that's another thing that we need. And you know, I showed you that graph earlier about our demographics where we get people in their 20s and 30s leaving the city. And you know, we could be slaves to the demographic sort of information and just say, okay, well, we're just going to be a city that has, you know, youth and older adults, and that's just who we are. But I think we also have to ask ourselves, what kind of a city do we want to be? You know, do we want to be a community where people can stay in the city as they move through all of their life stages? And so, you know, we really have the ability to change our demographics through our policy decisions and really make that change in the future. And we consistently hear that there is a demand for family housing. Many people in Victoria are not forming their own households, so meaning they're either living with roommates longer than they want to be, or they're living at home with their parents longer than they want to be. And many families live in housing that doesn't meet their needs. It's too small, it doesn't have enough bedrooms, and we have very few rental units that have 3 or more bedrooms. So these are some of our challenges that we're dealing with. So I'm going to move on to some of our planning tools that we have to manage all these challenges and help us plan for the future to address these needs. So Victoria has an official community plan, and it guides long-term growth and change. It guides council's decisions around land management and other things. And provincial legislation requires that official community plans must plan for 20 years of future housing needs. So we need to accommodate these new populations that I mentioned that we're anticipating. Other city policies and regulations must be aligned with the official community plan. In particular, our zoning regulations, they help implement the official community plan by putting regulations on the ground and actually giving properties their development rights, and those also need to be consistent with the official community plan. Our current OCP was adopted in 2012, and so more than 10 years ago, and it's due for an update to keep pace with current and emerging issues. So in 2012, leading up to 2012, after much public consultation on our current OCP, the growth concept that we came up with was to direct 50% of future growth into the downtown core area. So you can see in the reddish yellow or orange area in the middle. 40% of our future growth would be directed in and around neighborhood villages and town centers. So those are the areas with the purple dots. And then the rest of the 10% of the remaining future growth would be spread across the neighborhoods in the city, so the yellow areas. In addition to the OCP, we also do local area planning, and we have local area plans and neighborhood plans similar to Saanich. These have been they've been in place for many, many years, some dating back to the 90s, others to the 2000s, and there have been some that we have updated recently in some parts of the city. And really the role of these local area plans is to provide a bit more detailed policy guidance about some of our unique places in Victoria. So for example, our neighborhood villages, and they deal with things like design of the public realm, design of buildings, other things at a city block scale, so that they zoom in a little bit into a little bit more detail than the official community plan. So for example, our downtown core area plan is a really important local area plan in the city because downtown is very unique, has very complex buildings and sites, and really sort of warrants having its own plan. Now, all of this is going to change because we are in the process of updating our OCP as part of this 10-year review. Well, it's been more than 10 years. So this is all going to change, and we're considering a new growth concept, and we're also going to be updating and modernizing our zoning bylaw to help implement this. And we're also going to be looking at our local area plans and our neighborhood plans and seeing what we can do to consolidate them and really just kind of focus in on retaining some of those policies for the special areas, but essentially having the OCP deal with the rest. So yes, please stay tuned. We just finished doing public engagement on this and we closed on that in September, and now our team is busy analyzing all of that feedback and considering what the new policy directions are going to be for our new council. But essentially what we need to get out of this is to make more room for those future populations and housing units that we know we need. So I'm going to wrap up with a few words about how we plan, given your considerations are much around governance and how planning departments function. In all of our long-range planning, we know we need to plan for many different people, and therefore a diversity of needs. And in our community, we have many people with different incomes and lifestyles, abilities, family sizes, preferences, and so we really need to think about everyone when we think about the public interest. And so the way we do this is we engage whenever we create new policies for the future, including the official community plan, so that we can really invite residents to help shape their future and help shape those policies. So I mentioned that, Victoria, we have 60% renters. We have traditionally had a really hard time attracting renters to come out to our engagement processes, and we really didn't hear from them very much. And so we've been trying to think of different ways where we can really get a diversity of voices coming to provide input into these processes to make sure that they have a voice along with others. A lot of people in the city, they're struggling, they're working hard, they're raising their families. Some of them are, working multiple jobs. And so it's really hard for them to come out and come to a city event and participate in a planning process. And so we've been trying to redesign our engagement processes to make it easier for people and to do more equitable and inclusive engagement. And so in order to do that, we offer a variety of ways that people can be involved. We, of course, when the pandemic hit, we had no choice but to do virtual engagement since we weren't allowed to meet in person anymore for a while. And of course, that was a really hard time. But the upside of that was that we managed to attract many, many new voices to our planning processes, because you can participate in meetings and workshops when you're at home, you're taking care of your kids, you just finished up dinner and you can do it from your home, or if you have accessibility challenges and don't want to make the trip to City Hall, it's so much more convenient just to participate from home. So we got a lot of new people participating that way. But we also know that people really value in-person engagement as well. And we're dealing with really complex planning challenges and really wicked problems, and they're not, they're not easy to talk about. Sometimes, you really need in-depth conversations with people to really dig into things. And so, we obviously still want to do in-person engagement. It's really valuable. Going where the people are has really helped us reach more diverse people. So what staff do is we go out and we pop up at community events, and we try to go meet people where they are so that it makes it easier for them. So these are just some examples of how we've been doing engagement virtually, project websites. We use video a lot now. We have online surveys. We do information sessions like webinars, so often we'll do Ask a Planner sessions where people can hear about the project and ask questions. We have held virtual workshops and focused groups, and we now do online open houses, which is really interesting because unlike an in-person open house that just lasts for, say, an afternoon or an evening, these virtual ones can be up on our website for weeks, and we can have a bit of a back and forth virtually with people. And then, of course, these are some examples of what we continue to do in person. Walking tours, we do those staff-led walking tours, or we help people do self-guided walking tours. We offer residents information, we call it meeting in a box, where we basically give them information to run their own meetings with their neighbors and give them topics to discuss and to help them facilitate the meetings, and they record all the comments and they submit them back to the city. And of course we do in-person focus groups and workshops and as I mentioned, pop-ups, and then of course our more traditional open houses that we still have. And I want to mention, all the engagement that we do, it actually takes a lot of people power to do this. It's really important to our work. It helps inform people about the planning challenges and the problems that we're trying to solve, and gives them an opportunity to provide input and help shape the future together. And it brings people along, I think, when they're part of the process, and even for those people who might not agree with some of the outcomes and some of the things that we are recommending to council, they at least understand, why we're doing it, and the trade-offs that we need to make, and how we've arrived at our staff recommendations. So I'm going to end just with one final thought related to your considerations around amalgamation, just to emphasize that Victoria doesn't plan for its future in isolation. We have a regional growth strategy that the Capital Regional District oversees, and it basically zooms out and considers how all the Capital Region municipalities are going to collectively grow and ensure that we keep urban growth contained, as Lindsay mentioned, protecting our agricultural land, protecting our natural areas, considering our transportation systems that cross municipal boundaries. We talk to our colleagues at the District of Saanich all the time, and at Esquimalt in Oak Bay, because we share borders, we share transportation corridors and streets. Our engineering departments do the same thing. They're collaborating all the time on the design of roads as they pass from one municipality to the other. We also consult with the school district and the other municipalities that are part of the school district, and BC Transit and First Nations. So, regardless of whether we're amalgamated or whether we sort of remain as we are today, we definitely coordinate our future plans and plan together. So that concludes